Hello, and welcome to the UnToxic Boss podcast, where leadership meets empathy and productivity meets compassion. I am your host, Jennine K. Brown, and each week we will dive into the world of effective leadership without toxicity. I'm here to help equip you with the tools, insights, and stories to transform your leadership style, foster a healthy work environment, and create a space where everyone feels valued and heard. So grab your notebook, get comfortable, and learn to stop being a jerk at work. Welcome to the UnToxic Boss. Welcome to the UnToxic Boss. Today's topic is how to advocate and create support at work. And so I'm really excited about this topic, you all. Many people know that psychological safety is a topic that we've been talking about for the last almost 3 years. So traveling before even the doors of the companies reopened and the conferences were live, we were doing a lot of workshops and keynote speeches and writing articles about psychological safety and the importance of psychological safety in the workplace, no matter what industry you're in. So again, welcome. And today's topic of the UnToxic Boss is how to advocate and create a supportive environment for yourself and others at work. So what is psychological safety? Again, just as an overview, psychological safety, and particularly at work, is really focused on how to create environment where people feel safe at work, not just from, some sort of accident, but from bad actors and words that are used in communication. It also allows for teams to be able to be innovative and creative. And how does that happen? That happens because we create cultures where people can speak up, they can challenge ideas openly, that even with their leadership, they can advocate for themselves, they can advocate for others, they can disagree, they are able to have direct, open, and honest communication. And they can do all of this in an environment where they don't feel as if they will be fired, terminated, isolated from the larger workforce because they have an opposing view. So they don't feel a sense of personal threat to their being or other interactions in the workplace. And which I think creates two pathways. It creates a sense of belonging for people in the workplace, but it also is an essential ingredient in creating high-performing teams. And we all want to be on a high-performing team. We find that when teams are psychologically safe, that they actually make less mistakes because they're willing to own them. When it comes to crucial deadlines, they work in a more calm environment. And we know that when we are calm and we can make decisions calmly, we can create and innovate in a calm environment, that we actually make better decisions. We come up with better ideas. Now, stress does come up, and I think there's some good stress, right? There are stress that creates these endorphins that make us want to get to a deadline. Some of us work under great pressure. We think we deliver our best work sometimes under pressure. So there's opportunities to use stress at work, but we don't want the type of stress where people feel belittled, they have a sense of bullying, and they might even do something that the pressure can be so bad, especially if someone has an underlying mental health condition that they've either disclosed to you or maybe they haven't disclosed to you. And the impact of working in an environment that is stressful beyond normal work stress, right? They're dealing with having to feel a sense of isolation or a sense that they don't belong at work, which creates something even more dangerous that could lead to not just people leaving the workplace, but maybe possible chronic illness, additional mental health illnesses, and something that I saw this morning that just really broke my heart, suicide. I read an article this morning that I actually had to take a step back from my desk, take a walk, and say, what in the world is happening? There is a doctor at Lincoln University. She was the director of student affairs, I believe, who committed suicide. And there's a record of her interactions in the workplace with the university president, where accounts of bullying, belittling, isolation. And I feel like, you do all this work to achieve these degrees, and the role of student affairs director is such a beautiful role in the university, right? Your full focus is designed to promote and support student success at work. And in this account, she was having some challenges with the university president. She had some underlying mental health conditions that I think she disclosed, which intensified some of that behavior, according to the article that I read, that unfortunately led to her committing suicide. Now, that should never happen at work. I mean, just there's no excuse for it. I can't even really fully articulate my emotions and the things that I feel about it without feeling a sense of rage, right, on behalf of her, and benevolence, and the impact that this is going to have on her students, the community at Lincoln University, and everything else. But, kind of back to our topic, she needed advocacy and she needed support. And, what kind of things do we hear at work? There's all sorts of comments that we hear in the work that we do with clients, and I'm just going to read a couple of them. You may have heard some of these some of these things. I'm at work. You may have accidentally said it, right? Because none of us are perfect. We may have unintentionally said something that made someone feel a sense of isolation. It could have been a microaggression that we weren't really intentional, like it's an unconscious comment. It could be a conscious comment, right? That's rooted in a belief system that doesn't necessarily come from a good place. But a few things that I've heard at work, that people say, and we hear caveats, things like, "That's a silly idea. It's never going to work. You're too emotional to handle this project or this role, it's too much pressure. This role has too much pressure, and I don't think that you can handle it. You wouldn't understand this because, you're not part of this culture. You're lucky we hired you, considering your background or the school you attended. You should stick to what you know because this is a little out of your league. You speak well for someone of your ethnicity. You're so articulate to be Black. Oh, you're kind of calm to be a woman. This is a man's job. It might be too challenging for you, or your accent makes it hard to take you seriously in meetings, or I can't understand you. Can you speak more clear?" So we have all these sorts of comments that are made at work that cause people to feel a sense of isolation. It negatively impacts the culture in our workplace. And, some of us might be guilty of this. And I think we can rebound from these sorts of things. There's all sorts of microaggressions in the workplace. They're gender, they're racial, they may be related to sexual orientation. They are even generational. We were looking at a study the other day, an employee assessment that one of our clients did, and looking at the differences of how people feel related to certain questions based on age, right? So we know that even age discrimination is a relevant part of the workplace. How we form teams, how we identify opportunities, and how people are identified for promotion can fall into very toxic categories. And we want to make sure that we can remove that. So what can we do, right? If you're looking to advocate for yourself or for someone in the workplace, there are a few things that we definitely want to make sure that you understand you should consider. The first thing may seem basic, but I think for a lot of people, we start jobs and we've been working for many years and we don't even understand employee rights. And what are our rights? Not just in a larger sense, from we look at, the federal government when it comes to employee rights in the workplace. What are our rights? Do we understand what they are? And I think it's important that you familiarize yourself with your company's policies, your employees' procedures, your rights, the channels in which you can report, have conversations, and what are relevant labor laws that you should be aware of. Knowing your rights is the first step for advocating for yourself, and being really clear about what those rights are so that you know that, hey, is this the point in which it's time for me to pick up the phone and make a phone call to get support? Should I call the Office of Employee Relations, whatever you call it in your organization, EEO, Employee Relations, and get that support? And why is that important is because you need to know what sort of behaviors trigger an investigation within your organization. Now, I think that is an extreme, it should take you some time to get to the point where you are having to result in making a formal complaint. But I do think it's important for you to understand what your rights are. The other thing is documentation. What's the best way to document? I know some people say, use the method to make sure that they're covering and keeping themselves covered, but also document everything. If you feel as if, or you're experiencing bullying in the workplace, microaggressions, you feel as if your leadership, the team that you on is creating an environment that is trying to push you out of the organization, I think it's really important for you to keep good records of what's happening. You should be able to document the times in which these behaviors happen to you, incidents. I think it's really important to keep a paper trail. I am not an attorney. I play one sometimes when I'm reading contracts, but I am not an attorney. And I think it's really important, though, for you to document things, like including the dates and times, details when things have occurred. This kind of documentation can be crucial for any formal complaints or future interventions that are needed. And I think these are the kind of things that you want to bring to your leadership, right? To have these conversations that I find that, when I'm in this meeting, this happens, or can you help me figure out the best way to address this issue, because it's happened 2 or 3 times now. And it's occurred on these days, right? You have factual support. And factual support is really important because sometimes you're in a situation where people kind of discount your experience. Have you ever felt like you brought something to someone's attention? You shared your experience within an interaction, and you find that someone is discounting it, or they're trying to reframe your actual experience, and you feel a sense of gaslighting, right? Have you accidentally done that to someone else, right? Someone comes to you and says, "Hey, every time I talk to Jennine, she makes this sort of comment." And you say, "Oh, Jannine's just joking around," right? So that's an example of how we can discount someone's experience. And so when someone comes, to seek your support, which is another form of getting that support and advocating for someone at work, they confide in you because you're a colleague, you're a mentor of theirs. You might even be in human resources. The best thing that you can do is listen to their experience, validate how they feel and what that experience was like, and help them come to some conclusions on what sort of actions they could take. Right. And just by asking them, what would you like to see happen? How would you like this behavior to change? What can I do to support you? These are some questions that you can ask them while they're seeking your support, because building support and a supportive network can provide emotional support and backing, and potentially offer solutions to people who are dealing with these sorts of issues in the workplace. Another way to advocate and create a supporting environment when someone is dealing with microaggressions or an unsafe psychological space at work is, being able to communicate clearly, calmly, and professionally. It's oftentimes, I find that, like I mentioned earlier when I was reading this article about the woman who committed suicide related to bullying she was being impacted with at work, is that even I had to step away from that article and kind of process what I was reading. And we have to do that in some of the situations that we're in. A lot of times we love to clap back. We have a smart retort that we can say back to someone. And sometimes the best thing you can do is ask a question. When someone says something to you that makes you feel uncomfortable or even angers you, one thing that you can do is just say, "Hey, why did you say that to me? Why did you ask me that question?" Right? Putting emphasis in certain places in that sentence, so to make them think and pause and allow them to respond. I think it's important for you to kind of put a mirror in people's face just by asking them a question. And sometimes that's the best thing we can do, because it's really easy for us to fire off a list of things and kind of check someone. But sometimes it's better to just calmly ask them a question. Why am I the person you're asking that question to? Why would you say something like that to me? I remember being during the pandemic, I live in Atlanta, so we were still kind of outside a little bit, and I needed to get out. And I can't remember exactly why I was at this location, but I was in the food court. I was sitting at a table, and this man literally came and sat down right in front of me. And I looked up to him and I said, "Well, we're in a pandemic, and of all the places you could have sat, why did you sit here?" Didn't answer my question. He immediately got upset. And it was weird because he started calling me names and just being really derogatory. And I just looked at him and I said, "So you're going to call me names? Is that what you want to do?" And I stopped and I looked at him and I could see his entire countenance, his facial expressions changed. I think he realized, even for himself, like, what am I doing? And so he started to dial back his words, his conversation started to shift. And just that one question, I just brought to his attention, like, you're name calling. Like, are we in the second grade? And he changed his behavior. And what I realized is that when people start to resort to name calling, it has absolutely nothing to do with me. It's all about them, because it's all about how they actually see themselves and how they interact in the world. And I think the smallest thing you can do is to resort to name calling when you are upset, when you disagree with someone, because if you don't have anything, useful to say, you can't form the sentences to express an opposing view, most people resort to name calling. And unfortunately, that even happens in the workplace. So the other thing I think that people can do to advocate for themselves, we talk, those first few are just really technical and kind of things that you can do in the workplace, right? They're designed to say, hey, this is what I need to do to provide support for myself in the workplace or support for others. Is these formal channels is what we've talked about, right? That's HR, that's understanding policies, being able to communicate. But I think the other thing is, first, you got to set some boundaries. And oftentimes we wait too late to set the kind of boundaries that we need to create rules of engagement for people in the workplace. And we have to have rules of engagement. You have to be clear about what respect means for you, what it means for you to have a sense of dignity. And then also, the best thing I think we can do for other people is to create a space that they have dignity. Actually, it's a two-way street, right? We have to be able to do that. And the way to do that is to set boundaries. The very first time someone crosses a boundary for you, you have to be able to speak up and say, nope, you cannot talk to me that way. We got to find a better way to engage with one another. Hey, let's talk about how we're going to communicate going forward. Whenever we add someone to our team, not only do we share with them what our core values are for the company, we also share what our personal core values are, what our guiding light and our principles are in the work as we work together as a team. For some of us, that is our faith principles, right? Because we know that we have to be our North Star for ourselves before we can be the North Star for others. And in our organization, we even openly talk about our belief systems around our faith. We have a team of people who are both Christian, Muslim, and Jewish, and we interact with those, people with different faiths, even in the work that we do with our clients. And we do allow that to be a part of our whole selves, even in the workplace. And so we set boundaries around what we're going to tolerate and what respectful and disrespectful behavior is. And we definitely try to go back to not only our company core values, but our individual core values. And we share that. We know what that is for each other on our teams. And so if someone said something or they do something that we feel crosses the line of our barriers that are offensive, and we feel free to speak up and say that, ooh, you know what? I didn't like the way that sounded. Did you mean that way? And we even reserve the right sometimes even to not take things personal, right? We've all read as a team the book, The Four Agreements, and we spend a lot of time on the chapter about taking things personally. So setting those boundaries are really important. I think the other thing is prioritizing self-care. Self-care is something different for everybody. But what we know for sure is that working in a toxic environment is draining. It is draining. It is draining. And it is draining. So being able to prioritize your mental and physical health by engaging in activities that reduce stress and seeking professional counseling or coaching is really important, because there might be just periods of time where you feel like your workplace is toxic. And really, it might not be toxic. Maybe it's just a busy time in the work. You feel this sense of pressure. But if you are working in a toxic environment and you do not have a choice at the present time to leave, find ways that can restore your soul and your mental and physical health at work, right? Find places outside of that team and that work environment, and even try to find allies, other people who might feel this sense and this weight of working in this toxic place that you can build some camaraderie with and you can find ways to support yourselves. I think because what I find that comes out of that are solutions. When people can say, you know what, we got to find a better way, and there is power in numbers. What unfortunately happens is that you have one person who, at great personal risk and sacrifice, speaks up on behalf of the all. And oftentimes they are identified as being a problem person, right? They're the problem, which is a form of gaslighting. But if you can get people to come together and address this issue with leadership and bring it to their attention, but also bring solutions, is another great way to create a way to empower people who are witnessing colleagues experiencing these similar issues. They can support and empower, you can empower one another to speak up. Because like I said, there is strength in numbers, and a collective action can sometimes lead to more significant changes. So what do we see, when you're looking to support others who are facing these microaggressions and toxic behaviors at work? It's crucial to foster respectful and inclusive environments. And here are about 5 effective ways that you can find ways to support one another. So I want you to take this back. You can think about this over the weekend. Say, how can I do this with my teams? What can we do to normalize these ways? And first is listen and validate the experiences of others who come to you and share. Speak up and intervene on their behalf, especially if you have the ear of leadership, you have some social capital and goodwill in your organization, you're highly respected as a leader in the organization, and you can speak up with others. Educate and raise awareness, right? Promote awareness about the impact of microaggressions and toxic behavior in the workplace, but also as a benefit, right? How can we fix this issue so that we can be more innovative and creative, and our teams can get more done, and people can take on more capacity? Because when you educate and raise awareness, one of the things that you have to do is root that in data. And the data shows that when people are dealing with toxic leadership in the workplace, that they're not as productive as they can be. They don't collaborate, they don't raise their hands, they don't share ideas, and that directly impacts the bottom line and profitability of the overall company. And it also impacts the company's brand. Because when people feel that they hate where they work upon exiting or post exiting, they will go out to websites like Glassdoor, apps like Fishbowl, and share their experiences. And that directly negatively impacts the brand of the company, the team, and the organization, and maybe you as an individual leader, because people are not afraid to anonymously call you out. Let's advocate for inclusive policy. We know that there's a small sector of the country that is actively attacking the efforts of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. But what we also know for sure is that the data shows, and even looking at employee surveys, that overwhelmingly the majority of the workforce wants inclusive policies. They want teams that are diverse, and they want leadership that reflects the diversity of their communities and this country. But you can work as an individual and as a team, you can work with HR and management to advocate for policies that address microaggressions and toxic behaviors. You can even create programs that reward people for creating inclusive environments. You can identify leaders who are your ambassadors of what high-performing teams look like. You can create clear reporting procedures. You can do trainings, conversations, small groups, and kind of revise even existing policies to better protect what employees' experiences. And I think sometimes we just need to listen to one another, right? Those are positive ways to advocate in the workplace. Like even starting your team meetings by asking the team, what can we do better? Right? Send them an email in advance and say, we're going to start our next meeting and talk about ways how we can work together better. We want to give you time to think about it, bring your ideas to the meeting. If you feel more comfortable writing those ideas, send me an email. I will share your comments anonymously, right? And watch your team create the culture that they want. Because our overall goal is to reduce and eliminate bullying and harassment at work, gossiping and backbiting, exclusionary behaviors and tactics that try to identify and isolate people who don't belong, who we don't want there. We want to eliminate micromanagement that feels oppressive, unfair treatment, sabotaging other people's work or ideas, overworking employees. We want to, eliminate ignoring people's personal space and boundaries. And we definitely want to make sure that companies eliminate creating these cultures of fear where people feel like they're going to lose their job because they made a mistake or anything. So I want to pause, and I jumped a lot of on all of you, but this is an opportunity I want to give you to share your thoughts, or if you even have something you want to share that's working in your environment, or you'd like some advice on a situation that maybe you've witnessed at work or yourself. But as we wrap up today, we want to make sure that you are an untoxic boss. And what an untoxic boss is someone who's not toxic, someone who's creating capacity in the workplace, building geniuses out of the teams and the people that they work with every day. So we hope that this information for you today has been helpful, that it has inspired you to create a toxic-free workplace in your organizations, in your companies, and in your educational institutions, so that people can thrive, because our goal is to help everyone create a workplace and a culture where everyone thrives. Thank you so much for joining us today. We want to introduce you a resource that we know that will impact your life and your career. It's a book, Unstuck and Unstoppable. It is the ultimate guide to overcoming obstacles and achieving your goals. With practical tips and inspiring stories, the book will help you leverage your value, increase your visibility, and gain recognition to accelerate your career. Take action towards getting the career that you deserve. This book was named Best Career Book of 2022. Get your copy anywhere you buy books, either on Amazon or at our website at unstuckandunstoppablebook.com. Thank you for joining the Untoxic Boss podcast today. We are here and on a mission to help people stop being a jerk at work. We'll see you here again next week.